I believe you opened their hearts, and now they will be able to join in the imagination I wish to unfold today in our lesson. Some people who looked ahead and saw that we were going to be looking at Unity's 5 principles might have gone, a little yawn, again? Well, friends, that only happens with Unity or any other formal church tradition. When you look at principles, ideas, teachings in an academic, perhaps boring way. But we are called to take these teachings up, to take up the scriptures, to take up holy sayings from wise ones throughout the ages. And then it is up to you. My lesson title, This Means You, to bring those ideas to life. Yesterday I was intrigued because, well, it's kind of like a service at Unity. After it's over, sometimes, hopefully frequently, people will come up and say, oh, wow, today's lesson or service really caught my attention. This is what I've heard, and this really changes. I remember one of our musicians a number of months ago said, I've been singing in this church before this building was built, back when we had the old blue building on this property. And he said, I always heard this particular Unity teaching about denials. I won't go into that. But he said the service today, after all these years, I got it. I finally understood in a way that was meaningful and relevant to my life. Wow. As a minister, it doesn't get any better than that. To know that your ministry, perhaps what you have brought forth, has made a difference to someone. Another person shared a similar experience after our Easter service only 2 weeks ago of catching an idea, and they made it real for themselves. Oh, I might have pointed to this or that, or perhaps it's an event that Kelly back here is pointing to this or that, but ultimately it comes down to what you do with the Unity idea. What you do with the idea of how great is God. What you do with the idea of the Christ within. So we're going to begin a series today and next week on Unity's 5 principles, and then the third week on the 28th, Kelly von Heidenkampf will be speaking in this service, and she's going to bring it home with principle 5, commonly expressed as where the rubber meets the road. To walk your talk, to not just think and pray, but do something. And I offered her the title from Myrtle Fillmore. It's actually in the lobby on the wall down there. God has provided all that's necessary for you to create your world, a good world, a vivid world. And then Mrs. Fillmore said, get at it. Get at it, Francine. Get at it, Tim. That means make it real in your life. We often use the term in Unity, a realization. Ooh, I had a realization today. That means something became real within my mind and heart. Sometimes we're invited by a teaching, sometimes by music, or by art, or by our activity in the world, even in sports. It awakens us to a truth that can be real and relevant for our lives. But it requires our effort. How many times in the past 7 years have I pointed out to you the artistic blessing of our sanctuary and Unity's 12 powers depicted in these windows? I love the fact that members of the past literally made these windows. They didn't buy them from Costco, whatever. They got the idea to create Charles Fillmore's 12 powers of the human being, 12 God-given gifts, 12 ideals. And they wanted to put them into the sanctuary so we were constantly reminded of our central inner power, the Christ within. And it leads us to discover 12 divine gifts. But like I mentioned at the beginning, with lessons, with teachings, with instruction, it's all dead until you make it live in your life. As Myrtle said, God has given you the gift of wisdom, the potential of wisdom in your life, but it means nothing until you practice it. How do you practice it? You take the idea of wisdom. God has placed it within me, and each day I'm going to seek to speak, to do, to relate to others in the way of wisdom. What does that mean? To see in yourself and in others the true reality. To be wise enough to look beyond irritations with another person. To look beyond your own opinion and be wise enough to see the activity of God in each one you encounter. You practice that. You make it your daily inclination to see the good and the true. And your life will be changed. Our good friend and unlicensed Unity teacher, Gerald Evans, working his way to his licensure, wrote a book. I get it every few days on my Facebook feed. He wrote a book, Words to the Wise. Words to the Wise. Thanks, Gerald. But it's a tool. It's a tool. He would be the first to tell you it's not going to make you wise, but it may say, here is a key word. Work with this throughout this day, and it will make a difference. Read it quickly and move on. Not much has changed, but work with it. So I invite you first to begin our study of the 5 principles, to take the card out that's in your bulletin. In the next 2 weeks, if you get another card or 2 in your bulletin, pass them along or keep one in the car, one in your office, one in your place of relaxation at home, something that you can see it, like we see these windows, a reminder. And you can work with these ideas, making them ever more real and relevant in your life. So today we're looking at Principle 1 and 2, and I invite you right now to read along with me, if you will. Number 1, God is absolute good, everywhere present. Simply, God is all. And Principle 2, human beings have a spark of divinity within them, the Christ within. Their very essence is of God, and therefore they are also inherently good. Simply, you are Try that on for size. Think about it. Be shocked by it. Question its truth. You are God? Wow. I remember when I was a teenager, so I'm going back a few years. We were on a family vacation, and Shirley MacLaine had recently put out her book, Out on a Limb. Does anybody remember that? Way back, probably the 70s. And she was on a beach while I was on this family trip in Spain, on the island of Mallorca, and on a beach also. And I had been reading that book, the sensationalism of it, and the character of Shirley MacLaine caught my attention. And in that, she speaks about her realization, this idea coming true to her. And she spread out her arms and said, I am God. Well, my religious upbringing, I had difficulty saying that. Oh, God. But to be Shirley on a beach, throwing my arms out and exclaiming, I am God, sounded a little blasphemous. James, just who do you think you are? How can you have that kind of pride? Well, Charles Fillmore used to teach and speak to his weekly audience in Kansas City. And he'd tell them, especially when they had that look in their eyes as he spoke, the look of the deer caught in the headlights. He'd say, get behind the idea. Get behind it. By that, he meant grasp it, attempt to understand it, make it real. What does it mean to you? He didn't want people to memorize his words. Oh, Mr. Fillmore said, we've done that a lot in the last century. But he wanted you to capture the idea. What does it mean in your life? If you were here a few weeks ago, the president and CEO of Unity Worldwide Ministries, our sort of denominational leader, was here, Reverend Chad Groverland, and he challenged us. You see, he's been traveling all over the country to Unity churches. I forgot how many now, at least 40-something, that he's been to, like ours, met the people, talked to them. And he said so many Unity ministries, not unlike other denominations in Christianity and other traditions of spirituality, are finding fewer and fewer people in the seats. When the unity idea was new, vibrant, Mr. Fillmore spoke to a full house. When he went on lecture tours, just like Joel Osteen does these days, going to different cities to spread the idea. Whenever Mr. Fillmore went to Los Angeles, they rented the Shrine Auditorium, where the Academy Awards were done for so many years. And Mr. Fillmore every time filled that place. Why? He knew it wasn't his personality, but his idea at the time was cutting edge. It was new. It was fresh. And people were excited to capture the idea. It changed their lives. There were physical healings. Relationships were restored. People found new abundance in their lives, whatever that meant for them. Because they caught this idea, they made it alive in their mind and their heart, and it expressed in their experience in the world. So let's look at this first principle. God is absolute good, everywhere present. Or simply put, These simply statements come from Reverend Ellen Davenport and the book she wrote in recent years called Unity's Five Principles. And she kind of boiled down these statements that originated with Charles Fillmore back in 1909. In his very first book, he put forth these principles, but in a more verbose or elaborate way, a way that I relate to. But Ellen helped by putting these simply statements. It all boils down to God is all. And this morning, as Patricia was singing, how great is our God, it just helped me make that idea more real. As I looked around the room at you people that I love and saw the activity of God coming forth in your lives, most profoundly for me and how you show up at Unity South, how you support this ministry, how you do good works like this coming Friday. I'm going with you to the food group to sign up and help prepare food to support people in our city with good, nutritious food. There's a sign-up list down in the rotunda. I highly recommend you sign up today. But to see the activity of God at work, then I look in this beautiful room in which we're seated. And again, how great, how good is God that God brought together the physical substances and built up a home for the family we called Unity South 40 years ago and created this. Oh yes, many people gave donations, eventually totaling $1 million to put this building up. But when you get behind the idea, you know, God did this. God made it possible for us to come together, to share the goodness in our life that God provided. Oh, Reverend Stacey, I worked hard for my paycheck. Yes, you did. But who provided that potential in your life that you could have a career, that you could work for a company that blessed you abundantly in your finances? It's still the gift of our great God. You understand that, and when your company goes out of business, when your church releases you as a minister, life's not over because you know God is there. God is there to open new doors, to make a new path for you. If you think all of your good is coming from your paycheck or from your partner or whatever, things change. You think you've lost it all. But when you remember, God is absolute good, everywhere present, then even if tomorrow seems a little unsure, you know there is a way. God gives you ideas, strength, creativity. In one of the earliest English translation of what we call our Lord's Prayer, the Latin Vulgate, centuries ago, it gave the wonderful description. You know, Jesus spoke, "You give us our daily bread." Everything we need for a good, wholesome life. Well, in that early Latin translation, it says, "You give us bread super abundantly for tomorrow's need." Huh? I did the dog thing. Huh? What? Super abundantly tomorrow's bread? What does that mean? It means God fills us with ideas of the know-how to create what we need. An abundance of bread, an abundance of stuff and of supply. It's by God's good gift that we know how to try. How to come together even as a community and bring together the ideas and the stuff we need to get along, to keep this building going, to keep the staff paid, to make it all possible. God gives us the idea, and then we work to bring it forth. So principle 1, God is absolute good and everywhere present. I'll paraphrase a contemplation I like to use, a verse I like to use in my prayer time. It comes from Rudolf Steiner, and it helps us catch our place in this allness, this greatness of God. It says, what moves so mightily through all existence? What speaks so tenderly and inwardly in you? It is the presence of God, working in the infinite, but also in you. According to the Gospel of John, Jesus declared, and I believe it was the Christ speaking through Jesus, and he said to the people, you believe in God, believe also in me. Now, many people have interpreted that through the centuries as believing in Jesus, believing in the Son of God. What's meaningful and relevant to my life is Jesus was saying, believe in me, that spark of divinity within you, that Christ within you. So when we look at these two principles, 1 and 2, yes, God is the infinite potential, the great possibility. But remember also that spark of divinity, that presence of God. You can call it the Christ in our Christian tradition. But it means the Spirit beating, sparkling, radiating from the very center of your being. So when we look at principles 1 and 2, 1 gives us the infinite. How great is our God? If you grew up uncomfortable with the word God, change it, as Unity did, to good, the absolute good. Or change it to life. Or change it like Carl Sagan, to the universe, the all of all. Or we had a great Unity teacher and minister and author, Eric Butterworth, in New York City for many decades. And he coined a phrase, created a symbol, not unlike this one, in his church in New York. And it was meant to remind the people of the eachness and the allness. If God is the all in all, then this means you, Gerald, This means you, Kelly. This means you, Tyler. You're part of the infinite, and we don't want to forget that. So I'm going to give you a little counter idea. Sometimes seeing contrast in life helps us clue into what is real for us. I went with a friend Friday night to a performance by the Minnesota Orchestra that I'm coming to love and to attend. The Minnesota Chorale was singing, and they did a work by Brahms, if I don't butcher the German, Schicksalslied, or Song of Destiny. The words were poetic and for me a bit bizarre, because they challenged how I understood things. And I'll read you just a couple of lines. Brahms sets out in the music, setting this poetry to music. And it begins with the gods. The gods. Way above us. Ye move in yonder light on airy ground, O blessed spirits. How wonderful. And then the music changes and becomes stormy as it begins to depict the human condition. But to us it is given in no abiding place to dwell. We vanish, we stumble, we suffer, sorrowing mortals blindly from one brief hour to another, like water from boulder to boulder, tumbling down into the dark unknown below. I don't want to make that relevant in my life. The gods in a realm so far beyond, and me down here struggling every day in every way. That doesn't interest me too much. I feel more grounded in our unity teachings, and of course, these are not invented or owned by unity. This is just how unity chose to express them. And as Jesus said, you believe in God, the infinite, believe also in me. The presence of God, the spark of divinity within you. Now, I don't know about you, but that gives me hope in life. That makes my spiritual community, the unity idea I've given 40 years of my life to, it makes it worthwhile. It helps me understand my place in this world, the potential that God gives me, what I can do with it. When things aren't working, what do? I go back to my spiritual drawing board. And as Charles Fillmore said, just like a mathematic problem that you're working out and things don't add up, go back and work it again. And of course, the way we work that we'll talk about next week is prayer or meditation, or to use a less religious terms, our inner life. What we make within out of all that we take in from the outer world. What does it mean to me? How do I work with these ideas? God provides superabundantly tomorrow's bread. What the heck does that mean? It means God gives me the capacity to think, to speak truth, to act in ways that honor myself and honor others, to work cooperatively with others to bring forth good or to use a religious term, to bring God into the world. I saw a phrase once that was meaningful, at least to me, that your showing up to life provides the ticket of admission for God to come into your life. This is what we mean by faith. It's not memorizing Bible verses. It's not doing what Reverend Stacey taught in his last class that you attended. It is about believing to the very depths of your bones that God is absolute good, everywhere present. So what does that mean? In my life, in this church, in this world. Someone called me from one of my past ministries in another city, concerned about the bombing that was in progress over Israel. She said, I hear the East Coast is under high alert. We're probably going to get bombed next. I'm probably going to be killed. And I thought, does that take us anywhere? Does that bring healing or peace? It gets us nowhere. Someone shared with me yesterday in a group a statement, again from Rudolf Steiner. And he said, pessimism is always wrong, but optimism is not always right. Ooh, another chapter for words to the wise. No, but think about it. Pessimism, seeing the worst, is always wrong in the sense that it gets you nowhere. That's why our sign out front from Unity headquarters says Unity South, a positive path to spiritual living, a creative way to live in awareness of your place in spirit. It's something that can take you forward. Now, the other part of that quotation, optimism is not always right. Well, I thought it was. Put on a happy face. Or from South Pacific, you should hear my happy, happy, happy talk. I won't do all of that one. But optimism in the sense that you can use it two ways. It's wrong if you use the optimism to cover your face, to put your head in the ground like an ostrich, and not deal with what you're facing. That's a misuse of optimism. But if optimism leads you in the direction that God has given me potential, God has made me a thinking, willing, creative being, I therefore can face what is in front of me, any obstacle or any challenge. Jesus, again, the Christ, truth, speaking through him, said, in this world you will have trial and tribulation, things to work out. But be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. That is that spark of divinity within you, within you, within you, will always give you the potential to move forward. to face the obstacle. Remember the late great minister heard by millions around the world, Robert Schuller. He loved to speak. His choir sang about when you face a problem. Tunnel under it. Go around it. Climb over it. There will always be a way if you try. If you're willing to try. I want to plant the seed within you now through a short inner visualization. So I invite you to become comfortable and try on for size, so to speak, these simple statements. I'm going to ask you to breathe them in, just like you breathe air. This is breathing into your mind and heart an idea, giving it a chance to root in your soul or to expand what already exists in mind and soul. And it works with this contrast we've set up with principle 1 and 2. How great is our God? The infinite, the all possibility of existence. How close, how tender, how intimate is that spark of divinity within you. Use the gift God has given you of physical breathing and work with these ideas. Resting gently. Breathe in God. Breathe out self, your individuality. Breathe in life. Breathe out, I am. Breathe in the infinite potential. Breathe out your chosen deeds. Breathe in truth. Breathe out your thoughts into the world. Breathe in the qualities of spirit. Breathe out your creative word. That was simple. Now I invite you to allow your attention to return to this peaceful sanctuary where you're seated among friends. You've planted a seed. Breathing in the greatness and breathing out what you will to do with it. And I'm going to leave you with a gesture. You've heard of body prayers, body movement, yoga, Tai Chi, many things. They're not just about waving your arms around, kicking your feet. They have deep inner meanings. And I'm going to give you a simple gesture. You can do it at home, at work, out in public, or if you prefer in the privacy of your own room. It's very simple. Rudolf Steiner called it the gesture of Christ. Ooh. Is that like this? No, it's this and this. Or it is this and this. Or this and this. It is a reach of thought and feeling into the greatness in which you live. The greatness of God, of life, of the universe. The greatness of your uniqueness. The spark of divinity within you. And just as you stretch your arms in whatever orientation, how am I stretching myself in life, in my day-to-day business? Am I operating from the greatness that gives me possibility to the amazing power within me? For God is there. Christ is there. You believe in God, believe also in me. That presence within you. And as you live mindful of the continuum of the allness and your eachness, then you come from a place of power, a place of truth, a place that will help you, a place that is relevant to everything you do. Charles Fillmore said in the old days, Unity thought of it later and decided to edit it out of his writing. But he said, talk everything over with God. Whether it's a drink of whiskey you want or a brand new dress. They thought that was a little questionable, promoting whiskey or promoting fashion. But Charles was saying everything in life, work with God, the allness that wants to speak in your eachness, your individuality. And I'll leave you with that final unity affirmation. Whatever you know to be true for yourself, know to be true for everyone, or you've missed the point. That spark of divinity in you, honor it in all. The people you love, the people you understand, the people that vote like you, and the people that don't vote like you. See all of God's creation with an open heart. And then if there are friction or problems, you'll be able to open them, work with them, resolve them, heal them, because you're coming from a place of power and truth. And so it is. And so we let it